and everyone else who's listening tonight, our students and parents. We are very honored to be here tonight to present on the Santa Paula High School distance learning program. Mr. DeCandia and I'm Melissa Guerra, Mr. DeCandia and I share the summer school assignment, and during the regular school year, we are both assistant principals at Santa Paula High School. So we're really excited to be giving this opportunity to our students in order to help them both engage in credit recovery as well as enrichment this summer. Our entire program is being offered through Cyber High or Google Classroom. So our students are able to access the majority of the courses that we offer during the regular school year through their devices while at home. We currently have 23 faculty members working with us, including a summer school counselor. And together we are serving over 900 students. And as I mentioned before, these students are engaging in both credit recovery as well as enrichment opportunities. So students do have the opportunity to earn between 5 and 10 credits during the summer session. However, because we do have Cyber High opportunities, students who choose to work at a quicker pace because they're not bound to the constraints of the time being in the classroom are able to earn additional credits on top of those averaging 5 to 10. So the difference between this summer session and previous summer sessions is that we have the majority or a large amount of our courses that are being offered through the Cyber High platform. So our students who are taking English language arts, history, social science, and electives, for the most part, are doing that through Cyber High, and they are being monitored by a Santa Paula Unified School District certificated teacher. We are also offering Santa Paula High School courses through Google Classroom. So these are courses that are not offered through Cyber High, and we wanted to ensure that our students would have access during the summer like they normally would. So these classes are our sciences, choices, college and careers, which is a class for 9th graders, health for our students who are incoming 9th graders. We do have over 100 incoming 9th graders who are participating in enrichment. And we also have those students who are enrolled in our Human Services Academy for the 9th grade, as well as our AVID class who are taking their health class this summer. We have ELD and math academies. We're offering physical education, as well as media arts and design, which is one of our design and visual media arts pathways courses. I'm gonna go ahead and let Mr. DeCandia briefly talk about some of the experiences we have had with ensuring our students have all of their materials this summer in order to be as engaged as possible while at home.
Good evening. So Santa Paula, we are lucky to have such a large driveway, so I can have students and parents roll up in their cars. We'll be able to provide all textbooks required, Chromebooks, Chromebook maintenance. Sometimes students need a new Chromebook, novels. I had some students from Briggs come and very unfamiliar with our Chromebooks and technology, had the dad park. I got his password. We logged him on from the parking lot with the Wi-Fi, got him going. So a lot of things are happening smoothly with technology and needing the proper materials to conduct distance learning summer school.
So the way we are counting students as being present during summer school is if they are showing engagement during the week. So we have recognized that our teenagers tend to be a little bit more active in those evening hours, and we can see the hours in which they've logged into their courses. So we have many kids working between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. every night. So we're excited at the prospect of this opportunity this summer and moving forward, because I think that this type of opportunity really fits a teenager's schedule, and we've seen a lot of productivity during those hours. So if a student is showing progress in their course throughout the week, then they are considered present for their class. Teachers are reaching out to students on a daily basis. They are doing so via email, phone calls home, and conversations with parents. We are also using our Blackboard Connect in order to communicate with families. And as an administrator, I've never received the number of emails from a student or from students in general as I have during the summer session and in the last months of the school year. And I have to say, I just want to give a big shout out. Mr. DeCandia and I want to give a big shout out to our high schoolers who, you guys are just really awesome. You're resilient, you're hanging in there, and you're reaching out when you need help. Everyone is so polite and patient via email and on the phone, and thankful and grateful. And we're just really appreciative of the opportunity to be able to work with such great students in Santa Paula. So we encourage you to keep at it, keep working hard, keep progressing in your courses, and keep earning those credits. So that's all we have.
And Dr. Cora, if I may, before we conclude, I would just like to acknowledge our summer school administrators who, for all of their hard work, all of the pre-planning that went in to get summer school going. I think that is the reason why it's going so smoothly now. So thank you so much. I'd also like to acknowledge our teachers. Like Mrs. Guerra and Mrs. Garcia stated, they are continuing to reach out to students each and every day through multiple methods. And also, this is all new for all of us. We've been immersed in distance learning, and I am continually impressed by their depth of knowledge and their initiative to continue learning more about how to provide effective distance learning. And to conclude, thank you, parents. We're learning together. Thank you for your patience, your flexibility. We're here for you. And I will just conclude by, again, agreeing with Mrs. Guerra. We have the best students in the county. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Shefferly, Ms. Guerra, Mr. DeCandia, Ms. Garcia. Thank you. Let's see if there's any questions for the high school administration from the board.
I'd just like to say a personal thank you to all of you for working so hard, and just to let you know how smoothly it went. My grandson is taking health, and he's thoroughly enjoying it. It's not been difficult for him to get into it, and so thank you all for making all the process for all our students go so smoothly, and at elementary also. Thank you.
Madam President, I would like to say that Mrs. Guerra and Mr. DeCandia and Christine Shefferly, your positivity comes through. I really appreciate how positive you are and upbeat, and with that type of motivation coming from the top down, I think we're really fortunate to have you in place. We don't get to see the teachers, but I'm sure they feel the same way, and it really means a lot to sit here via Zoom and hear you be so upbeat. I did have one concern, however. Mrs. Guerra, you said that we had 900 students enrolled. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And then we only have one counselor. So I was just worried about that with 900 students and one counselor. How does that really work? I mean, it doesn't seem like it would.
So we're all hands on deck. Mr. DeCandia and I are actively enrolling students in the courses and scheduling, and we're acting as a team between Mrs. Bravo and Mr. DeCandia and me. So we're definitely making it work. And I think that between the three of us and the teachers, we're making sure to get back to students and to do so in a timely manner.
Okay, it's a team effort then. It's not just Mrs. Bravo doing it on her own. Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, again, I'd like to, again, Ms. Shefferly did a great job with recognizing not only administration, but the teachers, and Ms. Guerra giving kudos to the students. I agree. So thank you to administration, to teachers, and yes, to the students as well for running our summer school program, and thank you very much for the update. Mr. DeCandia, Ms. Guerra, Ms. Garcia, you're excused to get off if you'd like to go take care of work business.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right. We will now move on to information item B, update on Santa Paula High School band room options and Isbell main building options. Staff will present potential facility solutions to the Board of Trustees for the SPHS school band room and 3 options regarding Isbell Middle School main building. Staff will seek direction from the Board of Trustees. Dr. Cora?
Yes, and I'd like to say something regarding what was just read. We're not so much seeking direction this evening. We want to present this information to the board. The Isbell information is kind of a review. We had this information, I want to say it was last year or early this year. I can't even quite remember, it's that long ago. But this evening's presentations, we have Mr. Doug Henning from our district and Mr. Scott Gardner, an architect we've worked with in the past. They'll be taking us through the presentation. But again, tonight we'll share with you ideas, options we're looking at for the potential location for a new band room or expansion, and also for the seismic work that needs to be completed at Isbell, in the Isbell main building. We will be coming back after doing some further work after this evening with a recommendation, and at that point seeking direction from the board. So again, not so much seeking direction tonight, but a recap, a review, and obviously at the very end we'll be looking, if you have anything you want to say, please share with us either during or after the presentation. Okay? So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Henning and to Mr. Gardner.
Quick question, Dr. Cora, before we start, if possible. Quick question.
I thought that was coming from Zoom.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
Me. Quick question. Are we live with audio on the website just before we begin? Because I'm just wondering. My phone's blowing up, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not responding, but I keep getting texts that say that there's no audio, there's no audio, there's no audio. So I'm just checking.
Can you do me a favor, Mr. Luna? Can you ask one individual who said that and just say, can you hear us now? And see if they respond back, and I hope that we get a thumbs up. Okay? Thank you. Okay, Mr. Henning, Mr. Gardner.
Good evening, Superintendent, board members, assistant superintendents. Scott Gardner is, I believe, there in attendance, and he works for Flewelling and Moody, and he is going to walk us through a PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll open it up to discussion.
So I don't know about you, but I've done about 5 Zoom meetings today, so it's really nice to see people in front of me for a change. So thank you for having me here. About 2 weeks ago, Doug Henning and I got together and we walked the campus looking at all the potential spaces and came up with some pluses and minuses. And I have to start out by saying, I don't know how many of you have been inside the existing band room, but do you know what it was before it was a band room? Because we found it on the plans. Anybody go to school there?
We used to have lunch there.
It was a lunch shelter. It was a open lunch shelter that we found on the plans, and it was enclosed. It was about an 8-foot ceiling. So all those comments you heard about the acoustics and so forth, you understand what it was beforehand. So with that, are we going to start with Isbell, or are we going to start with, I think we're starting with the band room, so if we can do that one. As you can imagine, there are many possibilities about where we could have a band facility, including the existing one. And we'll talk a little bit about each one in terms of pros and cons and potential costs, just to kind of give you a flavor. And then obviously we're going to go back out here, I guess, in another week to refresh our thoughts and come back with some better recommendations. So with the original band room, as described actually in the letters and so forth, it's a very low ceiling space. It certainly is worked well up to the point where the band kept expanding and expanding, and it has challenges. Obviously, whatever we do there would be the least expensive solution. But as you've heard, the cons are pretty unique. The acoustics there, I don't know that we could fix that. The ceilings are so low, the storage issues are unresolved, and it just doesn't hold 200 students in any way, shape, or form. Even with acoustic materials, I'm not sure we could reduce the decibel level in there significantly, but it's an option out on the table. Let us go to option number 2. Oh, we're waiting for the slides to come up, I guess. How are we doing there, guys? There we go. Let's move to the second one, if we may. The second slide. Keep going to the next one after that. Got to stay with me here. Go to the next slide, please, which will be option 2. So the second place that we looked was immediately adjacent to the existing band room. There's a space there just between I'll call it the cafeteria band room facility and 5th Street. And there is a place to put a building there. It's about 1,440 square feet. So it'd be a large, very large classroom type space, if you think about it. But yes, I thought I was echoing, so yeah. So from that perspective, there is some room there. But again, I don't think this really accommodates the ability to hold all 200 students for a practice or bringing together. And of course, building a new building is not cheap when you talk about school construction, so that's certainly a consideration. So we've put a rough order of magnitude cost of somewhere between $750,000 and $900,000. Can we go to the slide after this and pick up the slide after? Okay, option 3. So we went up the hill, up 5th Street, climbed all the way up to the top, and we found, of course, the old auto shops up at the top. And part of that was being used by originally the tech, AV, and so forth. So the sort of western side of that building has some options and opportunities. There's obviously the large high bay space of the shops, plus an adjacent classroom that just on first glance has some real possibilities. The high bay can be acoustically treated. The classroom adjacent certainly could be used for choral or smaller group instruction. There are even 2 small sort of offices there. So there's opportunities to convert that space. Why don't we go to the next slide real quick? It's got the pros and cons. So really, this gives us approximately 2,000 square feet plus the additional classroom and small offices. Obviously, you've been up there. It is really a raw space. It doesn't have a lot of insulation right now, but that could all be addressed as part of any renovation. It also kind of gets a core area up there, complete with a roll-up door, that I think would very easily accommodate everything from moving materials and instruments and also the ability to store materials, band uniforms, et cetera. The cons are you've got another classroom adjacent that might be affected as if you're having music classes adjacent, and I think it's mechatronics or robotics at this point in time. And there's also yet another classroom on the other side of that hallway. There's a series of restrooms in between there. So obviously, we'd have to pay good, hard attention to the acoustic baffling in that area. But because it's an existing facility, we're really talking about changing the finishes and hanging the acoustic bats to accommodate that. Let's move on to the next one, which is sort of an expansion on this, and that is taking over the second bay as well, which is the sort of middle bay between, there are 3 work bays up there, if you will, if you've been through there. So it would actually just be an expansion a little bit further. The same issues about the high bay needing some treatments and interior finishes would be addressed. I think it gives a number of options for not only band, but choral, significant storage capabilities, the whole 9 yards. So practice facilities, small practice rooms could be accommodated in there. And then it still leaves a couple of rooms at the eastern end for classes for robotics and the adjacent classroom for robotics. Again, those two classrooms on the far end would be affected, so we'd have to be careful about the noise attenuation in that. And because it's a bigger space that we're talking about, the potential construction costs are going to be proportionately higher. Can we move on to option 4, the slide for that? Thank you. So then we started wandering down the hill along Palm Court, and lo and behold, we found, of course, you own a piece of property there adjacent to the pool that is currently vacant. And before you, sort of a pie-shaped location. It is it is literally a vacant lot. It could accommodate a pretty good-sized building there. I think if we were to look at it in some form or fashion, it probably wouldn't be square. It'd be about 3,200 square feet. And that's starting to match up with what we saw up at the upper level in the shops for the expanded sort of multiple two-bay space. So it has some pros. It's clearly near the stadium, so when band reaches out to march out on the field, they're right there. It would be a freestanding facility, which in and of itself allows for better acoustic constraints. And it would be obviously devoted strictly to music programs. There would be nobody else in there at this point in time. The downside is it's away from the campus a little bit. It's on the far side, and you're on a public street, if you will. There's a residential unit adjacent, so that always becomes a challenge. And from just a building perspective, it's an odd-shaped lot. Not that you can't do it, but it becomes problematic. And again, if you look at costs, it's in that sort of 3,200 square feet, 1.6 million, 1.7 million as a sort of a ballpark. Can we move on to option number 5? So this was an interesting one, and across the street from the pool and what we will call the Stadium Plaza, adjacent to the gymnasium, there's a fairly large space there which currently has some nice trees, palm trees. It also has a nice ticket booth. But a good-sized building could be, actually, we paced it off. We think we could build something in between the rows of palm trees, so we could keep the existing palm trees in there. It's a fairly flat site. And of course, its location, I think, again, is fairly ideal because it's right next to the stadium and certainly the gymnasium. It would be a freestanding facility, which I think is always an important piece when you're talking about a lot of noise, music, and being able to corral that in a proper space. Obviously, it would be devoted to music. We're a little bit farther away from the main campus, but clearly it's a part of the campus. We're just across the street from the pool area. And we do have one residential unit to the north of that. So that would be a challenge as we go forward. Again, we used approximately the same amount of costs for that building and that you'll see that sort of reiterated as we go forward. Going on to number 6, this is sort of a one that just came about, that what if we somehow ended up not wanting a pool at some point in time, and would that space be available? We're certainly not advocating that, but it's a space that is there. Somebody asked us to look at it. Clearly, we could build a building there if you were to demolish the gym or the pool. The pros and cons, obviously, it's near the stadium. It's a freestanding facility. It certainly would be devoted to music programs, but now we're taking out the swim complex, which eliminates a lot of the athletic and recreational and physical education options for the school. And in addition to building a building, you'd have the increased costs of having to demolish the swimming complex. So it just adds more cost to the process. All right, so let's go down to the last option, which is, we'll call it option number 7, which is to build a new facility on the 2 westernmost tennis courts. And I think you've heard a couple of comments about that. The logic is that, again, you could have a freestanding facility. This is on the main campus. It would be devoted to music programs. The downside is, obviously, we are now reducing significantly the tennis court program, and certainly for CIF tournaments, you need a minimum of 6 courts, so we would really be challenging to maintain a program that would be CIF quality. And in addition to that, there is some demolition costs that would probably come about to take those 2 courts out. Now, we did look at some other locations. So let me just talk a little bit about that. The issue of, we looked up at the warehouse, which is tucked up behind or above the stadium. The challenge there is from an accessibility perspective, it's a very steep slope. And to accommodate students there would require a pretty extensive thought process to allow for ADA accommodations. Furthermore, it sort of is really tucked away from the campus, although it does have a sort of a north end access point out onto a public street. I'm not sure that it has, we bring it up as a mention, but because we did look everywhere on the campus, but there's also displacement of maintenance and storage that is currently up there to some other location, which we may not have the space in the district to accommodate. So we also looked at just briefly the Palm Court parking lot that was just completed. It's a flat site, and certainly you could build something on that 3,200 square foot building, but we're now really taking over a space that we just improved, and which is used for parking, and of course we built it to accommodate the need for parking, and we would be eliminating not only the parking but all the improvements we just made. So we did look at those as potential solutions, but didn't put them in the options because it just didn't seem germane to the overall conversation. So those are the options as we know them today. We'll be back out next week with Francisco, and I don't know if who else will be able to join us. I was looking at the list.
Yeah, Ms. Garcia, I'm not sure if she can make it or not. I think she has something going, but she's invited. Mr. Guzman, the athletic director, gives us sports programs. Ms. Shefferly is invited as well because of the CT program. So we're trying to get everyone who would have some information on any of the programs that we're, or any of the locations that we're considering, to walk the campus, walk all of the sites that we're considering, and just analyze, review, and then come back with some recommendations, not 8, 9 options. We're going to get it down to a few. But again, we wanted to show that we're looking at every location. The one thing I want to say is it's difficult at the high school because it's such a small campus for a high school. Most high schools are built on much larger campuses, and you have some room. We're limited with the space that we have, but we'll come back with some recommendations.
Right, and I think having site staff's input is going to be really important, because if we are displacing space, let's say up in the shops area, and those are viable classroom teaching spaces, where else do we accommodate them on the campus? So that's an important conversation we haven't had yet. So we'll be back.
Questions or comments about the options that we've shared so far?
One of the comments tonight was from Eric Murillo, and he,
excuse me, are you talking into the?
oh, sorry. One of the comments tonight was Eric Murillo, and he suggested to look at the Wenger Corporation, and they suggested for about 75 band students, 2,500 square feet. So I think with 200 students, we're going to have to look at those higher end ones, even though they might not accommodate. But to go to even something at 1,400 square feet, it doesn't even seem like it's worth it, because their calculations for acoustics and all of that other thing was about 2,500 square feet per 75 students.
And it does matter, it depends on all the programmatic needs inside. We've worked with Wenger as an example on the band facilities at Hart High School. So, but yes, you're right. It really, this is why we need to have the conversation with the real users in this, because we're in the blind right now. Just trying to find accommodating spaces is the first challenge.
Colbeck's comment, this district has a history of doing things, not necessarily wrong when they build things, but I feel like money has been spent way too often on redoing something when it should have been done right the first time. So in regards to checking out the square footage, I think we definitely should consult with Mr. Marquez, and that we should look into Mr. Murillo's comments about how many students should be in a certain square footage for the band room based on, you know, acoustics and all that other stuff. Because if we want something done, we're going to do it right for the amount of money that we're going to pay. And that's really what I'm concerned about is the money that we're paying. So we got to make sure that we're doing it the right way, because as we know, take a look at any other facility or something that we've done that we had to redo again because it's not necessarily done right the first time. So let's just take a look at that. Thank you.
Another thing to look at is that we're saying 200 students to be in one room, which would be ideal if we could build a concert hall. But maybe we should also ask how you could, especially now in COVID-19, how you can accommodate smaller groups to build a band so that maybe the 1,400 upgrade that one, and then the same music, the Wanger group or whatever, they suggested practice rooms, which would be portables, and maybe we could then use that odd site by the pool for portable practice rooms, which may accommodate fewer students during different practice sessions that the teacher would teach.
So Wanger has, when they talk about portable practice rooms, these are like little cubicles that you can build inside a room. I don't know if you've seen them. We've designed them. It's not like a modular building, although there's an idea. But these tend to be like 8 by 8.
No.
They accommodate 1 or 2, and you can go in there and sort of practice by yourself. But you do want those rooms directly adjacent to the band room. The larger band room. It's important, and I think your band director will give us more guidance. You need 3 or 4 of those ideally, maybe more, to accommodate individual practice sessions. People go in, maybe 2 trumpet players working together, or 2 percussionists working through things. Those are important rooms, and they need to be considered as part of the larger space as well.
Appreciate having 7 different options, and you're talking about 2 more that you didn't even put on here. But when I started looking at this, I wanted to dream big. The citizens of Santa Paula passed this bond issue, and I'm sure they'd like us to do something really nice for our wonderful music program. So right off the bat, working with number 1 and number 2, it was like, then when we talked about the cons of having neighbors listen, it's going to be beautiful music, and it could be a plus for them. So the sections 3 and 4, I mean the options 3 and 4, you know, looking into the possibility of that. Then I got really excited when we went to the excuse me, because these are on opposite pages here. Oh, because there's 2 on 3. Then looking at the lots and building, so many possibilities on 4 and 5. Then on 6, taking away the pool, we kind of moved it off and down on a priority. We didn't drop it. That one scared, no, that one, I'm like, whoa. And then when you get down to number 7, I almost started to cry. Wait a minute, you know, this, talk about the community and what has, that's like part of our heart of the community is the tennis court and how many students grew up learning to play there, and we dedicated it to Dave Dyke and the heart and soul that they put in there and our tennis program. we're trying to build programs here, and to take away those two courts made me even sad at the possibility. So I think we've got some good possibilities in here, in the middle, but 1 and 2 scared me, and the last 2, I just like, that's nice you put them in there, but I didn't want the public to think, I didn't want to scare the public too, that there's different priorities in each option. So I just want to get those comments in there.
If I can say very quickly, I want to say thank you for the comments. I hope more comments are coming, because these comments will help us as on Wednesday when we take the tour of the campus. I'm taking some notes of what's being said. Again, you're not giving us direction right now, but you're giving us some thoughts, which is going to help us on our tour on Wednesday.
I was wondering, on number 2, the little, what about, I mean, you wouldn't use the current, even though it's like a cave in there, could you use the current band room in addition to that structure, and maybe make that higher, and then the band room could use for like practice rooms and storage, etc.?
That was what we were kind of thinking,
Okay.
that it would be all one space,
Okay.
and whether it was for storage, band, practice spaces, or even for the uniforms.
Yeah.
It's, yes, the idea was if you thought that was
Add
an
on.
appropriate space, it would be directly adjacent to the existing.
Okay, and how many, do you happen to know how many square feet that is altogether?
I think we kind of paced it off. There's probably about 2,000 square feet of the existing band room, if you will, and then we had about 1,440, so it'd be a little over 3,000, but it would not be really contiguous.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mishmash.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Before we go on again, can we check the audio on KDY TV, the live feed? I'm getting more texts that they can't hear this conversation.
I received a text myself saying that the audio was fixed, and that was at about 6:36. Yeah, if we can, how much, the rest of it are comments from the board, is that correct, Scott? 'Cause you're
Yes.
done with your presentation,
Yeah.
right? Okay. I just got another one, sound good. Man, that's 7:01.
I have a couple of concerns. On options 3A and B, where we use the top part of Fifth Street, those do seem like they might work. However, I'm wondering about the ability to carry the instruments to the stadium and back.
You're right, you're going up and down a hill there.
Right, it is. I drove it right before I came here.
I walked it.
Yeah, so that's a concern, isn't it?
I agree. I think if you're carrying a tuba downhill, it's probably okay, but probably not uphill. Same thing with the bass drum. And I don't, clearly you have a garage at one end. I suppose they can get a vehicle to carry things down, but it is a challenge if you're carrying instruments. You're going down a fairly steeply sloped street, and certainly going back up there, you're going to feel it. Good aerobics.
Okay, so if those options were to be considered, then we would have to also consider transportation, or transporting of students and their instruments back up to the.
Yes, and I think that's where we need the input of the band
Mr.
director to kind of guide us
Yeah.
as to what some of the the practicalities of these are. Again, we were strictly looking for open spaces. We weren't, and by the way, we had many of the same conversations you all have had, like, oh, tennis court's not good.
I think we understand you're giving us all our options, and it's a good thing. Yeah. Even though we don't like, I agree with Jerry Mead. I don't think we should replace the pool, nor do I think we should demolish the tennis courts. Those are definite no's in my opinion. But what about going back to options 3A and B? You mentioned concerns about about noise to adjacent classrooms. Is there any possibility of moving those classrooms to the existing band room? Kind of like do a switcheroo? Is that something to consider?
I'll use the Mrs. Rowland's line, anything's possible, at a cost.
Well, I mean, because that seemed to be one of the few cons for 3A and B. So if that could be done, maybe that's a possibility.
We did, when Doug and I were in there, we were trying to figure out how we could make that like 2 classrooms underneath there. There are some very large columns that they're about 1 foot in diameter, concrete, that hold up the building.
Oh, yes.
So obviously they'd be sort of an impairment inside the room itself. It's not to say it couldn't be done, but they wouldn't necessarily be the epitome of a classroom. So, but yes, we looked at it.
Okay, because if it's a robotics class, I mean, they may need to concentrate.
They may need the height too.
Yeah.
So.
I taught in the 400s. Do you know where the 400s are? And I, for 16 years, I taught an English class in there, and I really don't ever, and the band was just over from me. I mean, it was a little ways over, but I never really noticed it bothering me. And we had, we always had our door open, and we faced the hallway that goes right past the lunchroom to the band room. So I don't know, but I guess if it was like attached to your building, maybe it could be louder, but.
Again, I think that's an acoustic challenge to get in there, and if that building were considered, well, any of them, I'd see an acoustical engineer being involved to help us soundproof things as best, but at the same time, you don't always think soundproofing inside the room. You want to have proper reverb on the instruments. Right now, that low ceiling is a good example of what the decibel level is huge. You want to be able to absorb that and still have the articulation of the instruments.
Yeah, like movie theaters. When you're walking up to go in the door to see the movie that you don't hear anything, but then when you open the door, it's just like, whoa. So I suppose if you were in there trying to play different instruments, that could be the problem, yeah.
Out of curiosity, are we talking new construction with air conditioning in it? That way they can close the doors so there's less sound going out towards the other classrooms? And
yeah.
As I shake my head.
Okay.
Yes, we consider that as for the existing facilities and obviously for anything new.
Just as a final note, I just wanted to say, I agree with Mr. Luna that if we're going to do it, let's do it right. In fact, I understand that's the board's position as far as the pool. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. There's an argument to be made to make it CIF. That makes sense. Same thing with the band. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. I don't agree with him saying this district has a history of not building correctly, but I do agree that we should bite the bullet while we have bond money, and let's do it right. And therefore, options 1 and 2 seem a little shaky to me. I'm not sure we'd be doing it right if we did those 2. So I'm basically in agreement with Mrs. Mead on her overall analysis until we get more information.
I'd like to say, too, that being a band parent for 20 years, I admire band students. They're so resilient, and they will be thankful because as you know, what they've worked with behind those pillars, behind the small room, no air conditioning, this, that, and now they've grown to over 200. and they're phenomenal, and they still persist. And as you know, marching band is given PE credit, and if you see them where they go on parades and wherever they show up, they're hauling their instruments. And so it will be a challenge, I agree with Ms. Urias, but those band students are phenomenal. So I think whatever we can do right for them, they will embrace with open arms.
I want to clarify my comments on the district not doing things right. In the next presentation, we're talking about possibly eliminating the historic building for Isbell. And in two options in there, it says investment in the library renovations is lost. So when I talk about not doing things right, I'm talking about spending money first on something that we blow a lot of money into, and in the end, we end up tearing down. So I'm just talking about stuff like that.
If there are no more comments, I'd like to say, again, what I said earlier, and that is, all of your comments are, will be taken as we do our walkthrough. And again, having Mr. Marquez, Mr. Guzman, again, I'm not sure, I think we were all good on that date except Ms. Garcia, but I would really love for her to be there, but we'll work that out. Ms. Shefferly is the CT building. So all your comments, like I said, I wrote them down, plus we can run this back and listen to them again. But it will help us as we walk through the campus and come back with a recommendation. And I've got to share very quickly, Mr. Luna, regarding your comment. My father told me a long time ago, and he had the saying, if you're going to do something, do it right, or don't do it at all. So I completely agree with that comment. So, Mr. Gardner, I want to say thank you very much. Do you have anything else you want to share?
Look forward to the walkthrough next week.
Okay. Mr. Henning on Zoom somewhere, thank you very much. We're ready for the next part of the presentation. That's Isbell main building.
So let's move.
We'll go next to information item B. I'm sorry. Yes, Isbell. We'll just go right to Isbell. I don't know what I'm saying. Just go ahead.
Okay. Let's bring up the first slide. So by way of background, I think you've had actually two reports about the rehabilitating Isbell Middle School, one from 2008 and one last year. So option one would be to seismically repair and modernize the existing structure. Obviously, one of the things I learned when I first came to this district is how you embrace the town's character and the historic elements of the town. And we also recognize that every student goes through this school along with the high school. So from a historical perspective, it has a lot of meaning to this community. By renovating it, following the seismic repairs, and also modernizing other things like air conditioning and lighting, we will maintain that architectural character. It will be a challenge based on what I saw in the proposal from the structural engineers. But it also, and I point this out, it still allows us to keep the library investment that we just completed intact, although obviously we're going to have to do some additional work there. It's one of the challenges I see is as we try to work within that structure, things like mechanical systems are going to be a little bit more expensive because we're going to have to route them through an existing building as opposed to starting from scratch. It's not to say it can't be done. I'm just pointing out that doing things like that are, they're going to have a higher impact on cost. I don't know if everybody realizes, and I know the board does, there's a fireplace in every single classroom there. It's kind of unique, so it's kind of interesting. All of these renovations or replacements are going to require interim housing. So that's a cost that probably wasn't in the original structural engineer's cost that we have to consider. But the idea of renovating a building also allows you to maybe fix a number of things that over the years have become challenging, like the office area, which has probably had very minimal upgrades over the years. Fire and life safety systems can be updated, obviously mechanical, lighting systems. Just insulating the building so it's more energy efficient. All of those things have long-term benefits. Overall, this is probably your least expensive option because you already have the structure, but it's still an expensive option, and I think you realize how extensive the work will have to be there. If we can move to option number 2, and by the way, just for fun, I put a parking lot out front that would allow drop-off and pickup in a more efficient manner. So that's what the blue is that you see there. We did that just for fun to show you what could be done. And it actually uses that space out there even more efficiently so that you have the 2 areas, both on Harvard and on 4th there, to accommodate traffic to the middle school. Going to the option number 2 would be basically rebuilding a replica of the 2-story building. Now, what's the purpose of that? Well, it's to, again, be respectful of the history of the building, but it also allows us to maybe do a deeper dive into accommodating what I would call next generation educational experiences. If the science lab is sort of compromised in the current facility, if we were to do, and by the way, I know you have new science labs elsewhere, but if we wanted to have team teaching or something like that, it's a little harder to do it in the old existing building, whereas we could accommodate it by moving walls around in the design process to allow that to occur. It also, when you talk about mechanical and electrical systems, being able to design them from the ground up makes it a lot easier to integrate all of that as we would do in any building. Obviously, the downside is, and we talked about this, is losing what we just put into the library. We still have the need for interim housing, which is typical, but you would have something that looks, for all intents and purposes, we can replicate pretty much anything, and we've done it before, and I've seen it done elsewhere. I know, as an example, the Huntington Hotel in Pasadena was totally torn down, but it was historically replicated, I mean, down to doorknobs, as an example, and it's kept some of the other existing spaces on the campus or on that property, so it can be done. But you're also talking about the cost of demolishing an existing building and then building a new building, so costs go up a little bit more. Let's move to the last option, and this was just, we did this actually just briefly last summer. One option is to, if you just to build a sort of a 1-story new building complex. And all we did here was we took the buildings that we had designed for the K-8 school and accommodated them on this campus. So those are 3 classroom wings. There's 24 classrooms in that. And then the admin building would have been in the admin building that we used for the K-8 school. So it actually has a literacy center already in that space. It just shows you that it can be done. But you're still talking about, with the exception of elevators and the vertical component, you're still talking about the same cost, whether it's replication or starting from scratch. And again, we're not saving what we put into the library just in the last year. So that's the 3 options that we kind of came up with at this time. We've talked a little bit about timelines. If we were to get direction on any of these, I think the district would probably require at least 18 months to get through a design and approval process with DSA, and at least another 18 months for construction. So we're talking about a 3-year span, and having to have interim housing probably for 2 full school years during any one of these options. So those are the 3 sort of broad picture items. We're open to questions.
Here's my first question. Before we talk about demolishing and giving direction to taking away a beautiful site and making it up to code, can we check with the requirements for the state of California to see what the requirements are to be a state registered historic site? Because I don't want to tear down something that could potentially be a historic site. I mean, it has, like he mentioned, chimneys and fireplaces basically in every classroom, and that's historic itself. And in 1925, when it was named after Miss Isbell, she was one of the people who established the first schools in California. So to have that recognition and that prominence is something Santa Paula values. And so before we move into something about tearing it down, I just recommend that we look into the state guidelines to see what could be placed on the historic site.
And I know we have, and whether Mr. Gardner or Mr. Henning has that information, but we looked into that. Do you have that, Mr. Gardner?
I'm looking actually at the 2008 report that actually had a historic resources component. And I haven't read, I can't put my hand on it, but I believe it was designated as a Ventura County Historical Landmark number 143 and a Santa Paula Historical Landmark in 1992. It is not a registered state landmark. When we look at historic preservation, there is a separate code actually that allows for modifications to the building code to allow for the historic elements to remain intact and not be destroyed to meet other code requirements. Now there's certain, obviously, seismic things we'd have to do, but accommodations would have to be adjusted, but you have to go through a different process for that. So you might not want to be a state historical designation because it also limits you a little bit. But clearly, you already have some clear designations that you want to consider and what the implications are.
Thank you. I just would like to preserve the building as much as possible because I'm a history person. I love going to visit other towns where their buildings are done by, architects who aren't even alive anymore. And it's just so wonderful to step into one of those buildings. And every time I go to Isabel School and I walk through those classrooms and through that building, I'm just amazed. And I feel the history of this town and the history of the architects that worked into designing something like that. So I personally would like to save that sort of building, but I know we need to bring things up to code. And I just put in the recommendation that we check to see if we could get it on a state historic landmark.
I appreciate this information just because it brings to light how much money it really is going to cost to address the issue at Isabel. I don't think the public understood how much, because no matter option 1, 2, or 3, everything came out to about $20 to $24 million. So whatever way we go, if we save or redo the building, the money is, that's a lot of money that people have to understand, because the original bond is only $39 million, and there's many other sites that need other items. The other thing I would like to point out is that with this presentation, as we move forward, I don't think we can have this presentation without having other alternatives that we have discussed at some board meetings, workshops, about reconfiguring Isabel, because as our decline in enrollment has occurred, that was the reason we didn't get the new school in East Area 1. We've talked about K-8s, that again, we really need some solid planning, and let's do it right if we're going to go to K-8s, if we're going to go move the 6th graders out, or if we're going to save the entire Isabel campus. So it's a start, it's a piece of the puzzle, and whether the work's done here, it'll be done elsewhere. Thank you.
As we move forward on plans for Isabel, I hope that we get input from the Isabel teachers on the pros and cons of all 3 of the different options and what their feelings are, because if we move from the 2-story to a 1-story, they're going to be the ones that are teaching in it, and it's going to be a new configuration. And I'd really like to hear from their point of view, are they in love with the historic? Do they like the 2-story? Just pros and cons from their point of view on having the 3 different options or more.
With that, I think that it would be good to hear from the teachers there and find out if they're if they're happy where they are right now, and once it's air conditioned, of course, they'll be happier. You know, or if, and there, as Ms. Colbeck said, we are thinking about reconfiguring our grades, so that could come into play. So I think these are some really good options, and I mean, I was really interested to see all of these, and I'm surprised that they're all around the same price. So, but yeah, I think we should hear from the teachers and maybe think about what we can do to. I mean, I know a lot of these buildings over here are portables, right? Yeah, they're most of these off here. So, and then there's the big band room with some classrooms, and then there's and the gym. With the band room, and then there's the science lab. And is that pretty much everything there? Okay, right. So, you know, I think just a little more thinking about it, but really good options. Thank you.
Comments? So for all three options, you're going to accommodate a bigger and better parking area on 4th Street, no matter which option we choose?
I think we should.
You're right. So I saw the map on each option, so I just want to confirm that no matter what option we take, it will be a better face of the school. It'll be a better entrance towards the school.
Right. So actually, if you look through the 2008 report, it actually speaks about the original portico that was removed there, and it kind of lost its front door look. And we actually have the drawings, I think, somewhat preserved. Doug may have them somewhere in his archives. But there's a lot to be said about creating a front door, and we did this just to kind of show you what could be. We haven't even had any input from staff, but just sort of common sense things that we started out with the K-8 school. But we're not, you've done parking lots, so we know that these are not big ticket items, but you'd want to, when you're doing a rebuild of anything, as you said before, you want to get everything right as much as possible. And one of them is parking and drop-off for this campus.
And having said doing it right the first time, or doing it right, I was concerned about, since we're doing this because it needs to be seismically retrofitted. So are we somewhat in a hurry to do this? I mean, I know we want to do it right, but since it's a safety type renovation, we need to put it on the top burner, right? We need to get going on it, or since it's a safety.
What I remember the seismic engineers coming in and telling us was that they weren't closing it down. It's just one of those that has to get done. And I think the can's been kicked down the road quite a bit. So it needs to get done. Does it have to be done tomorrow? No, but it's got to get done.
And now's the time. Or
I have a question. If your child was going to be in that building, is there a difference between the safety level depending on which option we would choose, do you think?
So to answer that, first of all, understand that this building was seismically upgraded right after the 1933 earthquake. It was gunited. The original building was a brick building, and the brick is still there. What you don't see is that it was covered over with what's known as gunite, which is a concrete, essentially, that was allowed and stiffened up the building. That worked in 1933 and met the code then. When we went through a process in the state of evaluating buildings, the seismic standards have raised significantly over the years, and this was a building that was identified in needing additional seismic upgrades. Now, to answer your question, is it a safe building? Yes. Every building is relatively safe relative to the potential of a seismic event. A 5.0, not a problem. 7.0, it's probably going to get a little shaky. We have the big one when the San Andreas fault, all bets are off. And that means any building. I would tell you if we built a new building and we hit a 9.0, I don't know that we could, and you're in the wrong, that building's in the wrong place, it comes down. But we try very hard through the state programs to build anything we build, whether it's the existing building, a retrofit, or a new building. It's going to be built to the standards that day. So 2019, 2020, it's going to be pretty darn tough.
Right.
And remember, these are places of sanctuary in a time of an emergency,
Yeah,
so they
true.
have to stand up.
So I just have another question, and then also, is a one-story building necessarily safer than a two-story building?
Say maybe a little bit more because it's a little easier to exit, okay? Having said that, though, you create passageways in any building that's over a story tall, that stairwells and elevator, well, you wouldn't use an elevator in an emergency, but those stairwells have to accommodate people, they have to stand up. So it's a little harder to get everybody out, let's say, from the second floor, although you have exterior stairs, you have secondary stairs. And we'd probably rebuild some of those secondary stairs that are on the exterior and make that, because I think they're sort of metal and they're sort of probably not the best choice. But everything we do is driven by code things. So the way we exit from any building, there's a whole series of criteria that have to be met. And in some cases, we'd probably make it a better exiting in any capacity than what it is now.
Thank you very much.
Other thoughts or comments or questions?
Dr. Cora, can I add something for the board, please?
Absolutely.
When we're considering the Isbell renovation, whatever selection the board chooses in the future, and you've seen the price tags on the three options that have been presented this evening, upwards of $21 to $26 million. I want the board to realize that currently on hand with the last series of bonds for Measure P, the elementary or K-8 bond, we only have $21,000 on hand, $21 million on hand. So in any scenario, we're going to need additional funding. We have another series left in Measure P, but we have potential challenges that we face in accessing those dollars right now that the economy might impact. So when the board has some direction, I do recommend that we bring John Isom in to have a discussion on how we can access those dollars and the best time to do so.
And Mrs. Shevsky, thank you for that. On the very front page of my agenda, I have called John Isom regarding presentation and selling the next set of bonds. So we'll get him in here to give us information on that.
If there are no further questions, thank you very much for your time. It's good to see you in person.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. And thank you, Doug, in the background. Thank you, Mr. Shevsky, for the input regarding the bonds. And thank you, board, for the feedback as we move forward. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're going to move now to item 6, action items. Action item A, adopted budget 2020-2021. Approval of the 2020-21 adopted budget as presented. Dr. Cora?
Thank you, President Thompson.
So moved. Second.
And I was just going to say the staff recommends the Board of Trustees review and consider approving the 2021 adopted budget as presented.
All right. Do you have a motion, Ms. Mead? Was that Ms. Mead? Oh, Ms. Colby. Oh, was that you?
Michelle made the motion and I seconded it.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't.
We didn't give Dr. Cora a chance to say his sentence.
Okay, so Michelle Colbeck made the motion and Tina Urias made the second. Is there any discussion?
Are we going to have a presentation again, or because?
The presentation was the same presentation as last week. It's just 1 week old, and I think most people know that it's going to completely change. We're waiting for the budget to come from the state, and so we're looking at adopting a budget that we know is going to change. How soon, we're not sure, but it will change.
Yeah, so there have been no changes from the Sacs forms and budget documents that were presented last week. Just to add a little information that I received today is we do anticipate a deal at the state level, but probably by tomorrow. But again, typically you utilize your May revision figures in your adopted budget. We obviously wouldn't have had the information in time to incorporate any actual state adopted budget information into our adopted budget. So we will likely have a 45-day revision period. And again, that'll be dictated by the date that the state adopts their budget.
This is more of a annual exercise, and so, you know, it changes, and especially this year, but I hope that we don't lose sight of what our costs are recently, and not have to wait a whole year to find out. So I had asked at last board meeting, you know, we need to know how much money the COVID-19 has cost of us, how much it's going to cost us coming into it. That is all money that's going to come out of the budget, whether the state comes in or comes out. And then we also have to keep our eye on the fact that we are deficit spending. I know we have a healthy reserve, but the healthy reserve is right now. And if you look at even 6 months out, that healthy reserve dwindles every day, and it doesn't help if we're not setting priorities in the right manner. Bond money is one thing, but paying the bills is another. So even though this is a whole year and we move on and that kind of thing, I think the budget is our #1 priority at every board meeting.
And if I could say something very quickly, we presented a proposal to the board back in February, March, I think it was, regarding coming to a balanced budget, and that was with a $3 million staffing, reduction total, including staffing, and then a 2.5 the following year. So we are meeting the $3 million reduction for next year. We need to start working on the 2.5 for the following year.
Any other discussion? Then we'll take the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? And there are none. The motion carries 5-0. Action item B, 6B, Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP, Operations Narrative. Executive Order N5620 established the requirement that a local education agency, LEA, adopt a written report, COVID-19 operations written report, explaining to its community the changes to programs offerings the LEA made in response to school closures to address COVID-19 emergency and the major impacts of such closures on students and family. The approved operations written report will be submitted to the Ventura County Office of Education and posted on the Santa Paula Unified School District webpage. Dr. Cora?
Thank you, President Thompson. Staff is recommending that the Board of Trustees review and approve the Santa Paula Unified School District COVID-19 Operations Written Report under the following goals of Strategic Goal 1, academic performance, improve student academic performance and provide varied student opportunities. Strategic Goal 2, communications and community relations, community with stakeholders. Strategic Goal 3, district culture, foster positive unified district culture. And Strategic Goal 4, safe and healthy schools, maintain a safe environment for students and staff, and promote health and wellness.
Thank you, Dr. Cora. Do I have a motion?
To approve.
Thank you, Ms. Rios. Thank you, Mrs. Mead. Is there discussion? All right. Okay.
Very much like the summer school update, I found it to be a very, very positive report. And I'm very impressed with the thoroughness of the document, and thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Shefferly and her staff get credit for that.
That's great. All right, any other discussion? Then we'll take the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed with nay? And there is none, so that passes 5-0. Action item 6C, Ryland School Business Financial Consulting. The Board of Trustees will review and consider approving a contract with Ryland School Business Consulting for the purposes of providing interim/transition services during the recruitment of the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. Dr. Cora?
Yes, thank you, President Thompson. Again, staff is recommending the Board of Trustees review and consider approving a contract with Ryland School Business Consulting for the purposes of financial consulting. And as you said, for clarification for anybody in the public, it's having a financial consultant coming in from Ryland School Business Consulting to work and lead our business department during the transition from our current CBO to the new CBO.
All right, is there a motion? Thank you, Mrs. Need. A second?
Second?
Thank you, Mrs. Urias. Any discussion? No? All right, let's go for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. And there are none. Vote passes 5-0.
And President Thompson, if I can, I'd like to, with that being approved, with that item being approved, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Mike Clear, who will just say a few words. Mr. Clear, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Cora. I will be representing Ryland School Business Consulting for the most part, keeping the business department moving, working with Dr. Cora and the cabinet and staff on, especially, of course, the budget situation in Sacramento as that whole process moves forward, and trying to work with Dr. Cora and the staff and just revising the budget where necessary and getting it ready for your next CBO that comes in. So looking forward to working with staff and of course, Dr. Cora.
So, Mr. Clear, you just have 1 year of experience, correct?
1 year? Well, I've been a CBO for 28 years. I retired almost 3 years ago now. I've worked in very small districts to very large districts. So I've been up and down the state. It's kind of funny how I was about 10 years in Newhall School District where Sherry is going. It's a great district up there, but yeah, about 28 years as a chief business official.
That's what I was trying to get from you. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Clear? Thank you, Mike, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to move to the consent calendar. Item number 7, consent items are considered routine and will be enacted by a single motion. None of the items will be discussed unless a board member requests discussion prior to the vote of the motion to adopt the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Mrs. Urias, second. Thank you. And all in favor, say aye. 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 All opposed? Carries 5-0. And now we will move to board member comments and requests. We'll start with Mrs. Urias.
I'd like to start today by saying I'm very sad to see our CBO go, Sherry. Shame on me, I never really learned how to say her last name correctly. But Sherry, you will be missed, and I always liked the way you had an answer and you knew your stuff, and I do appreciate all the work you did for our district, and I'm sure the rest of the board feels the same way. So good luck to you in your new job.
Thank you, Mrs. Urias.
And the only other thing I'd like to say is that I didn't say last time was that I did participate in a couple of the graduation ceremonies, one at Renaissance High School and one at Isbell. And the one at Renaissance High School, it was a lovely evening. It was later on in the evening, so it wasn't quite as hot, and everything went very well. So good job to Dr. Gillette and her staff out there for having a lovely graduation. And the graduation at Isabel, now that was hard work. That was a over 3-hour ceremony. However, Mr. Briggs and his staff also did a very fine job of keeping all those cars moving. And it was a little bit of a warmer afternoon, but I'm very happy to have been part of those 2 graduations. So thank you very much, and hopefully at the next board meeting, more of us can be here in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Urias. And Mr. Luna?
The only comment I have for tonight is, before we move into public comments during any type of meeting, can we make sure that we have our audio working completely? Multiple times, it's been the same thing over and over again, and I keep hearing about it, so I'd like to address that issue and just make sure that we don't start public comment until the public can actually hear what we're talking about.
My comment is that I had asked the board president and Dr. Cora that as the county reopens, we too, under the Brown Act, should consider reopening. And so hopefully the next board meeting, we can come up with some protocols to have the public back within the guidelines of reopening, because under the Brown Act, these meetings are supposed to have public access, and with the trouble with the audio and submitting written statements, I know many of the public are frustrated. And also, as we move forward, there are just so many monumental decisions to be made that we are using the public's tax dollars, and therefore we need their input. On that same note, I had brought to the attention, if you look on our website, the only way to access the board meeting is the little board meeting up there. It used to be on the side where it would post that we're having a meeting, and so many people didn't know that there was a special meeting tonight. And I think under the Brown Act, that is also a violation, although by the letter of the law, we met it because they post it. But if you don't have Facebook, if you don't have this, and if you haven't contacted the district in advance, you don't get notices of it. But I really think that whenever there is a public meeting, it needs to be on our front page of the website, so people can see that there is a meeting coming. That's just my comment.
Thank you, Ms. Urias. Mrs. Mead? I'm sorry, Mrs. Colbeck, I apologize.
I just wanted to say I really appreciated the presentation tonight on the proposed options for the band room and Isbell, where it gave us an idea of the opportunities we have for moving forward. I know it was just a general presentation, and we're going to be diving into it, but I think it gives the opportunity to people in the community to have their voices heard too, and we're listening to you, even though we can't comment on your comments, but we hear what you're saying and your concerns, and I think it's really important, as both of these items are going to be big ticket items, and I really appreciate the opportunity to hear the first step, and it's exciting.
Thank you, Mrs. Mead. And I will go last because I am last. I would like to welcome Mr. Clare to our district, and also say a fond farewell to Ms. Stiffened. And that was risky, but I think I got it close to right. And we're really going to miss you. And you know how bad I am at math, so I'm really going to miss you. So we just wish you every happiness as you go on. And also, I'd like to say that Ms. Colbeck did contact me, and I contacted Dr. Cora, and he found out today that we will be able to open back in a limited way according to all the guidelines for COVID-19 at our July 8th meeting. And so that will be really good news to everyone, I'm sure. And also, I enjoyed hearing very much about summer school from Ms. Garcia and Ms. Guerra and Mr. DeCandia and who am I leaving out? And Christine Shefferly, who is always such a huge help. And with that, I'm going to.
Can I make?
I'm sorry, Mr.
I'd like to make a quick comment. This one's for the public. And if you go to our webpage, along the black strip at the top of the page, it has home, about us, departments, employment, schools, students, parents, staff, calendar. If you click on that, if you just click on that calendar, you get a calendar for every month. So that's one way to easily access what's going on in our district.
Thank you. And our future meeting will be July the 8th, and we will be back here with an audience and some people who want to come. So we will be really looking forward to that. Now, I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and then we're going to go into closed session again. So I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 7:52. Let me just write that down.
And then reopen.
And now I'm going to reopen the closed session at 7:52.
Yeah, so.
Reopen? What did I do? Oh, do you want me to read this? Okay. Okay, all right, okay. Oh, where is it? Oh, I turned right to the back page, okay. All right, so let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I will lead this time. It's my turn. Okay. Hand over your heart, ready, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I didn't know I did the Pledge of Allegiance again. No, I'm glad you said that. I did not know. We're going to adjourn to closed session. Huh? What's that? A motion? Thank you, Mr. Luna. Thank you, Mrs. Colbeck. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Nay. Okay. Now we're rolling here. Public comments. There are no public comments. Do I need to read the whole thing, do you think? Okay. There are no public comments regarding closed session. So now we will adjourn to closed session, Government Code subset 54954.2. A, public employee appointment, Government Code subset 54957, title Executive Director of Special Education.